is a Think Live Be production. Hello.
Well, hello, sir.
Hello.
How have you been?
It's been a long
Since
day.
this morning.
It's been a long day.
Yeah. It's a long year. Is that possible?
Well,
Actually,
we're not even through the first quarter yet. So.
You know, I said long year, and then I was like, no, it's a short year. It's almost April.
Technically longer year because there was a leap year.
Oh, true. Somehow we got an extra day in there, and it still feels like it's just flying by.
I'm sure we wasted it.
No, I'm sure we did. So, speaking of wasting time, welcome to our podcast. No, I'm just kidding. I hope you don't feel like you're wasting time listening to our podcast. We, in case you are listening for the first time, this is our podcast called Seeking the Best. I am a realtor here in the Orlando area. And this is my significant other, Patrick Fatika.
Hello.
He's our sound engineer, producer extraordinaire. He also does graphic design, photography, videography, whatever I need. He's at my beck and call.
That's true.
It's very handy. He's not at my beck and call.
Yeah, just
actually.
go if you don't know what to do, just get yourself a significant other that can do all of that stuff.
Right.
And then you can just focus on making your calls, right?
That's true.
Just get one of those.
It does come in handy. However, no, he's not at my beck and call. In fact, I will say, can you do this for me? And he's like, oh, I'm his worst client. But anyways, we are. A lot of what I've been talking about lately has been about value. So I thought it would be a good idea to share some of that conversation with you guys, because this podcast, we started this because I like talking about real estate, and we talk to each other all the time about, the struggles and the things that we go through every day. People think this job is so easy. They have no idea the things that we go through. The abuse that we take.
Well, they don't care about that, but I don't know if they think it's easy or if they just think, it's like anything, right? People spend 2 seconds. They don't really think about it. They form an opinion and then they move on with their day. So they're not really thinking about what it is that you do or when you get paid a commission, where that money goes, and they're not thinking about any of that stuff. It's like, they're just saying, this is this is the most equity that I have in my life, and I'm giving this person a bunch of money.
True,
that's all they really think about.
But when I say this, I actually think, like, people that I've worked with, like past clients, consumers, clients, customers that I work with, I don't actually think that they feel that way.
Because you've worked with them and then they see.
Yeah, they're always very grateful. Yeah. Not always, I shouldn't say always, but like I had 2 conversations yesterday, both of which were thanking me
19 out of 20 times.
Yeah. That were thanking me for all that I do. And it's it's not every time, but it's very nice to hear, and they trust me. And I've earned that trust through the things that I do every day, and I deliver on the things that I say I'm going to deliver on. And then that builds trust. And I think that there's, to the average consumer out there, though, they can feel like, well, what do I need you for? And so there's a lot of talk in the industry about value right now. And I just thought that I'd share, because I'm having conversations with my team about it too, is like, why would people want to work with us? Now, I know that, like, I know the answer. I know it deep inside. I've been doing this a very long time. But I think that, again, in this podcast, it's called Seeking the Best because we're always trying to figure out the best ways to do things. And that includes educating consumers. That includes having conversations, scripts, dialogues. And so I could just say, here, say this, to my team. But I think it's more valuable to have a mastermind around it and say, you guys tell me, like, what do you think when you think about what makes us special, what makes us unique? And then how do you describe that to people regularly so that they see it
in a way that's natural?
Yeah.
In a way that it's true. Right.
Well, and so I thought, it would be worth sharing some of the things that I think that we do well. And these are things that we're talking about, and then we're asking ourselves, how can I make this into whether it's a testimonial, like who has experienced this that can give us a strong testimonial, or whether it's making it into some sort of marketing piece to showcase the values themselves,
an elevator pitch,
or specific scripts and dialogue, and how to illustrate it when having conversations. So all of those things are going to come out of this conversation that we had, but I guess just going over the main things and how I see them and how we execute it. And I hope that's helpful for other people. It was helpful for us to talk through it and think about it. And I don't feel like I have a hard time demonstrating value, but that's because when you work at something a really long time, there's some point in your career where you're like, oh, I know, I'm an expert at this. Like and I don't know exactly when that happens. I think it's probably different for everybody.
You know why you don't know when it happens? Because in order for you to get there, you have to have your head down and be working really hard. And then all of a sudden you pick your head up and you're like, holy crap.
Yeah, I got this.
Yeah.
I know.
That's why you don't know.
I know the answer to pretty much everything. And there's still times where
it's not even the answer. It's what we talk about all the time about knowing the fundamentals. You've got the fundamentals so internalized that those are on autopilot. Like I'm sorry, that's the wrong word. It's a reflex. The fundamentals are such a reflex that you don't have to think about it. So when we talk about you have to learn these fundamentals before you can play jazz, you have to learn all the chords and master them, right? You have to master all of these different music theories before you can go out there and experiment. That's kind of what we're talking about here, that you've gotten to that point. But when you're talking to your team, they come in, the team is at all different levels of experience. None of them even close to the experience that you have. So when somebody were to ask you, if you were to be talking to somebody, potential client, and feel like this person is not understanding what the value of my brand and my team is, you can instantly turn that on and know how to describe it, because it's your team and you've been doing it for 18 years and you know how to do it. But for a newer agent who's maybe been in the business for a couple years, maybe been on the team for one, it's not instinctual to them to know how to answer those questions. In order for those to work, for that explanation to work, it has to be internalized to such a degree that when they say it, they believe it because it's true and they know how to answer it. Otherwise, it's a lot of ums and uhs and talking in circles and rambling, and that comes off as you don't know what you're talking about or you're trying to hide something from me, right? So it has to be so internalized of explaining your worth that it just is second nature to you.
Well, and I think, two things come to mind. Number one, you were talking about that, and there's a bold law. So if you guys are not Kellerized, as we call it, if you're not familiar with Keller Williams' bold maps coaching class, there's laws in there. And they're just basically sayings that we say out loud. But one of them is spontaneity is a conditioned reflex. Ponder that for a while. That used to be there's like a ton of bold laws, and it used to be one that I just never really thought about and didn't give too much consideration, but that's exactly what you're describing. Mm-hmm. And so I think about that when I'm thinking about like how do you become an expert because you internalize everything to the point where
you don't have to think about
you don't have to think
about the answer. You already know the answer. There's no thinking. It's your instinct and all your knowledge and all of those things to you just make the right decision. This is a little off subject because I'm not.
Where's the rabbit hole?
Well, because I'm not an agent, so this is just a different kind of story. A few weeks ago, I had a client who wanted a logo, and we spent a really long time kind of coming up with the logo design, and they sat on it for a little while, and then they came back and they were like, "Oh, our friend said that it looks like that this this doesn't look like what our company is, and so we're thinking about changing it and stuff. And I sat with it for a while, and then I just kind of talked to them for 15 minutes about my 2 cents and what I thought. And then after I did that, I explained to them how context matters and all these things, and just kind of spoke, and they were like, "Oh, we never thought of any of those things. You're right." And then when we hung up the phone, we didn't have to change the logo. And I said, I sometimes forget that I have 30 years experience until I open my mouth and start explaining things. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, he does have a bunch of information. You forget sometimes until those questions are asked. But it took, so that was me kind of lifting my head up going, wait a minute, I am an expert on this. I've been doing this a very long time, and it's all I do is think about these things. So yeah, I'm an expert on this. And so luckily that all worked out to my advantage, but it was the same sort of thing of just picking your head up and realizing.
Well, but the point of all that is that once you get to that point in your career where you feel like an expert and you really can kind of say anything and know the answer to anything pretty quickly, that you do know your value. You're so attached to it. Like you're like, I know I don't need this, right? Like I don't need this particular client if they're being difficult or whatever. You get the autonomy.
If I have a potential client come in and we're not connecting and they're demanding things that I wouldn't normally do, or they're being difficult, I cut them loose immediately because I don't need it.
But that's the point, is that
Right.
you get to a point where you're so experienced that you know your value. You
usually
know it so well.
It
that
usually gets cut off right at the beginning. It never even gets to the design stage. Because I've gotten so good at reading people and seeing red flags that I can just say, oh yeah, this isn't going to work. I'm moving on with my day.
Yeah. So you get to choose when you get to that certain level. You've got more flexibility in your own business too, to choose if you want to work with people or not want to work with people. You don't feel desperate for things, and you know that you are worth it because of all of that experience. But when you're new, or even not brand new, but just when you haven't reached that level to where you feel that internally, it's harder maybe to know what the value is and how to illustrate it.
You're getting a phone call from some investor that wants to spend $2 million on 12 properties over the next, or whatever, or on 5 properties over the next 3 years, and then they want you to dance. And those people, and then you feel obligated, like you have to take that because you don't know where the next check is coming from. Right? It's the more you do it, the more experience you get, the more clients you get, the more successful you get, and the more you can tell the guy who wants to buy land 30 miles outside of where your metro area, you tell him to go find somebody else. So I'm not doing that. Right? Like that's you have that freedom to be able to do that. That's what you're shooting for here, is to be able to have the freedom to be able to say, you know what, I'm not driving to the other side of town to show these people a townhouse for $225,000. They don't, or whatever. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm fine.
Anyways.
Well, I'm sorry. It's like
he gets ranty.
Well,
sometimes.
It's like you want to be, that's like, why are you doing this? Why put in all of that pressure so that you can just work with the people who understand what it is that you do and respect what you do, so that your job is not a stressful mess.
Well, so I'm going to give you
stressful. It's a stressful mess from other sides. You don't need it from your clients too.
I'm going to give you an example of being able to choose for a different industry, and it might feel a little bit on the nose timing wise with what I'm about to talk about, but like if you go to a doctor's office and let's say that the health insurance company that you happen to have decides that they no longer want to pay their bills at the appropriate amount, then the doctor's office, if they've been in business long enough, can just choose, we no longer accept that insurance. And they move on with their day and they still have a successful business, and that's how it goes, because they get to choose, because they know their value, and they're going to say to this insurance company, I don't need you because I have enough clients that pay the bills that I don't need that.
Hmm?
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, but knowing your value when you have experience is easy, right? Because you just know it. It's
Because
just
you have it.
You have it.
Yeah.
You've got experience. You've got value. What are other value adds though that add up that really matter that you can demonstrate to consumers
Until you get to that point.
And well, not even that. It's like things that we do today that are still like.
Oh, that aren't directly associated with
that experience is just one piece of value.
Right.
Other than that. And so we kind of came up with a list of things, and I was going to kind of go through them and explain some things. So I'll just do a few, and then we'll break them up. So other than experience, we talked about communication, but communication is one of those words where everybody says, like, we're really good at communication. Well, what does that mean to you? What is your standard of communication? And can you demonstrate that to a consumer to a way that they say, that's value. That's something I'm not getting elsewhere.
Can you explain what that means to you in a simplified form that makes sense that they didn't hear from the other one?
Yeah. And so here's what ours is. And it's something that I've been saying forever. And I was really proud of my team member who said it back to me today. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, they came up with it?
Yes. They didn't come up with it.
Right.
That they knew
that that's what you were looking for.
They knew the right answer.
You mean someone answered a question correctly?
But it's like specific to us, you know?
Yeah.
And it's that we never let someone go to sleep wondering about their offer. So this specifically applies to buyers, right? But what is one of the biggest complaints that consumers have about real estate agents is they don't hear back from them. And this applies to the seller side too. Like, I think I said in one of our episodes recently that I had gotten a call from somebody and they were like, yeah, you listed my house and I haven't heard from you in like months.
I think that was the last episode.
Wasn't me. They were calling the wrong person, but I was like, what? You haven't heard from your real estate agent in 4 months?
Yeah.
And you're just reaching out?
I think they forgot about you.
But anyways, that wasn't me because I would never do that. But if we're demonstrating value to a consumer, specifically a buyer, that's really easy to understand. Like, I'm never going to let you go to sleep wondering what's going on with your offer. You will always get an update at the end of the day until we know if it's either accepted, rejected, or countered. And the difference between that and what other agents do is like there's a stark difference.
It's night and day. Yeah.
So that's something really easy that you can say. And if people have bought and sold homes before, they know what you mean. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Mm-hmm. And then for communication.
And then you just have to do it.
Well, that's the next part is, and I think this falls into communication. We actually didn't talk about this one today, but it's something that it's like a core value, I think is the best way to explain it for myself. And we do what we say we'll do in the time promised. And so if all I just say is that to a consumer, and then I actually do what I say I'm going to do in the time promised, I'm building trust with them. And it's the same thing with I'm not going to let you go to sleep wondering what's going on. If I tell you that's the case, and then I deliver that promise, I'm building trust. And that goes all the way back to like when somebody's just a lead. If you say, you meet somebody in open house and you say, yes, I'll send you that information later. When I'm done with the open house, I'll get home and I'll send you that seller's disclosure or whatever it is. And then you actually do it. You are hands down
so ahead of the game.
Ahead of the game because you did what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it.
You guys want to know how many times I've had somebody come over to this house or one of our rental properties to give me an estimate? They walk around the house. I talk to them for 30 minutes and they say, okay, I'm going to go write you up an estimate. And I never hear from them again. 1 out of 3 times that happens. So remember that because that is going to that transfers over into real estate too.
Yeah.
1 out of 3 agents isn't going to do what they say they're going to do.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's more than 1 out of 3.
Probably. It probably is. Like, but I'm just saying, like, for us, like for vendors, you know, I mean, there were times, I guess, when we were going to get our house painted, it was, I think I contacted 6 or 7 different companies. I got 1 quote.
Yeah.
some no call, no shows and stuff like that. But one actual quote.
Well, I think I'm sure I've said this on this episode before, or this podcast before. I got a listing one time because the other agent just didn't show up to their appointment.
Right.
Now, I mean, I probably earned the listing through other things too.
But it didn't hurt.
It didn't hurt. Right? So I just did what I said I was going to do, right? And the other person didn't. And so I immediately shot up in the front of mind to say, I can trust this person because they're actually here.
Yeah.
And then whatever I said I was going to do, I'm going to follow up with you tomorrow and do this. I did that too. And I'm not trying to be perfect here. Like, I'm not perfect. And there are times.
It's not about being perfect. What Catherine wants and what she's always wanted, I don't even know if she's ever voiced this, but that very first client to the second, to the third, to the fourth, she wants them to be clients forever. Like, that's always the idea. Every single person, I want this person to be my client forever. Whenever they need anything, I'm going to be there to sell their house or to help them buy another house. Always, every single time. And so she bends over backwards to make sure that those people feel like they trust her to such a degree that it doesn't matter if their brother's husband, sister, whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Gets a real estate license. That they're going to come back to her. So every relationship that's built from the very beginning all the way through is built with that idea always in the back of the mind.
Yeah. I was like, sister-in-law? So you're
yeah. Well, I just meant like, somebody's friend's brother's cousin got a real estate license and all of a sudden, I'm sure our listeners have had people who were clients and then all of a sudden, their neighbor got a real estate license and they saw there was a sign in their yard.
I think my first actual closing, you could say I was the listing agent and the buyer agent. In Florida, we do transaction broker. So I don't know which one you consider my first clients, but, or customers. But the buyers in that case, they just participated in the pet photo contest that we did after 18 years.
Right. 18 years and they're participating in our VIP program.
Yep.
Still.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But that's the goal. Like, that's actually, I guess what it comes down to me is I want an actual business. And the way you have an actual business is that you have a book of business and people that send you referrals, that use you repeatedly. And that's what that is.
Yeah,
and that
the only way they do that is with trust.
With trust, yeah.
And showing your worth. These people, this is worth every nickel.
Yeah.
Right.
So that kind of all falls into communication, but see, there's like succinct things that I feel like they're little sayings I can say to somebody, and it just like they get it. And then it's also things that you can say, and then you can easily deliver that promise. There's a whole script, and I actually don't know who started this because I thought it was this one guy named Mike something, but I've heard it a million times. But it's this whole script called The Promise. But that's literally what it is it's a promise that I'm going to do a really great job for you, and in return, I would hope that you'd send me a referral. But they tell you, they set the expectations up front with that script that I'm going to do all of these things. And then they're actually going to do all of those things. And then they say, like, so if you don't have a referral for us, we're going to assume that you don't think that we delivered on the promise. The point is the execution of the things, right? People say they're going to do all kinds of stuff. It's, did you actually do it? And then did you do it when you said you would do it? And again, I'm not perfect. Sometimes I can't 100% deliver on that. I try to push out things to the point where I know I can get stuff done, but life every now and then gets in the way.
Yeah.
You can't be perfect 100% of the time, but if you still execute what you said you were going to do and you do it, like, let's say you miss it by a day and you get it to them and you explain it, but you've provided value within that. Like, staging plans are a really good example. Sometimes those suckers take me a lot longer than I think they're going to. Mm-hmm. And I do a whole staging plan for someone. But if I'm going to be late in doing it, they're still going to see the value from it when they get it and they open it up and realize, wow, this must have taken Catherine a really long time to put together. This isn't just some generic thing. She went through every single room and wrote out detailed descriptions and to-do lists of what we need to do to get the house ready for sale.
Yeah.
So the value is the thing that I sent them.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's absolutely true. And also doing what you promise you're going to do, and then doing it in that time frame, and providing those things to people. Those are the things that you can control. There's going to be a lot of things that happen through the process that you can't control, that those buyers are being unrealistic about what they want fixed, right, when it comes to their inspections. And so they just say, you know what, we're withdrawing. You can't control that. There's only so much you can do. Like, you can try to explain and do all the things, but you don't know the other agent, whatever. There's a million of those things. If you are doing all of the things that you can control and doing it the right way, and then your clients 9 times out of 10, 99 out of 100 are never going to blame you for those things. If anything, they're going to apologize that it's right, that I'm sorry that this is not working out the way that we wanted it to, and all of that stuff, because they see your worth and what you're doing for everything else. You're never going to get blamed for those things. But if you're an agent who maybe didn't call last week and then didn't do this and skipped that conversation, and then that falls through, you're going to get blamed for that, because all they're thinking is, well, why isn't our agent doing anything?
Yeah.
Right? So you make promises, you fulfill those promises with the things that you can control, where nobody else can get in the way of. And then when something else happens, something that you can't control, you're not going to get the blame for it. They're not going to remember that. They're only going to remember the other stuff that you were doing for them.
Well, that kind of goes into the next thing.
All right. Well, you want to take a break and then we can get into it?
Sure.
All right. Let's take a break.
The Think Live Be team is an Orlando-based real estate team with Keller Williams Realty at the Parks. We operate as a boutique-style company with the resources of the largest real estate company behind us. Think Live Be is looking for talented people like you to join our team. If you happen to live in the Orlando area and you're a detail-oriented quick learner, then we might have a place for you. Whether you're a real estate agent or administrative professional, we are looking for individuals who are ready to work hard and ready for success. If you're ready to join the team, visit us at thinklivebe.com.
And we're back.
So we kind of we covered some communication stuff. So the next one is solving problems. And this is one of those things where people don't know how many problems come up in real estate transactions. And it's not a problem if they've never had it happen to them.
It's why
they just assume, like, out of sight, out of mind.
It's why there's a thing called FSBOs.
But people don't realize, like, all the things that could come up, that we are solving those problems behind the curtain. And the thing with that is, it's hard to illustrate that as value until you're in it. Mm-hmm. And then that's why when I make calls to sellers, a lot of times
I don't want to pay taxes for I don't want to pay any taxes for a fire department. When have I ever needed a fire department? Right? And it's like, well, you see how valuable they are when they've got a hose putting the fire out on the second floor.
Right.
Right.
But you don't think about it until you need it, and then you don't think you're going to need it. Like, oh, I don't need that. And it's like, well, but you might. It's I can get in that same boat with, like, insurance. You're like, oh, do I really need insurance? What are the chances? But it's like, you don't know until you do, and then you're glad you had it. Well, it's kind of like that, but that's harder to illustrate to people until you're in the moment and you're handling it for them, and then they really see it. And that's how you can they'll see the value there, and they'll be able to refer you and repeat business. But how do you demonstrate that to leads and prospective clients and customers? And I think one of the best things is just through stories, through storytelling. And I don't mean makeup, make believe, but, like, it's a good idea when you're talking with people and you're trying to help them see the value of using you as an agent, to tell them about other situations that you've helped handle, and how here are some things that could come up. And these are things that we'll handle for you, and you won't pay us anymore for doing it. We will just do all of these things behind the scenes so that you can get to closing. And it can be anything from helping them figure out insurance issues, repairs and negotiations, getting quotes for repairs. My God, that's like pulling teeth. It's my least favorite thing to do, is to try to get quotes for repairs. And it's like, if people had to do that on their own, I mean, they would never get through inspection periods. We barely can as it is. They don't understand
when are they going to do it? On their time off, when they get home at 5 o'clock true. And everyone's closed?
Yeah, exactly. Things would just grind to a halt.
Yeah.
And so you can tell people stories of like, I know kind of the area you're looking in and kind of the price range, and here are some things that might come up. And inspection issues are particularly challenging in this area because they're older homes. Mm-hmm. And so here's what we might find. We might find, FP panels. We might find older roofs. And here's how we will help you navigate that. Here's how we just helped these other people close on this house down the street. Mm-hmm. And you're telling them a story, but you're connecting the dots to how it helps with their search. Yeah. And you do the same on the seller side.
Yeah. We love these old houses that you want to buy. In fact, we own a house that's like this. These are the issues in this neighborhood that we've seen in the past.
Yeah. And then what you're demonstrating is the number one, you're demonstrating experience and value with the experience to handle those things, but also the fact that you guys don't worry about a thing.
Yeah.
Because we know how to get through it all. We'll figure it all out. Everything is workable, and giving them confidence through that. That's adding value to them, because otherwise they wouldn't have any idea.
Right.
What to expect. And so whether it's inspections, quotes for inspections, repairs.
It's not just saying, oh, we're going to take care of you. Oh, we're going to handle any problem that comes up. It's not saying that, right? It's being specific about the types of problems that they're going to find in the places that they're looking for, the type of house that they're looking for. Those specific, and then you tell them what those things are, and then you tell them you're going to fix it.
Well,
or you're going to help them maneuver through those problems. You don't just say problems, because that's generic and doesn't mean anything. You got to give them specifics.
Well, and so here's another example, like permits. I don't know about where you guys are from, but here permits can be a bit of a nightmare, because a lot of times people don't pull permits. A lot of times people pull permits, and the people who pull them, the contractors, don't ever close them out.
Yeah, we have a lot of hurricane damage that happens, and then
sometimes we have stuff that's happened that got repaired without a permit because there was a hurricane that came through, and
people just fix things. And when that happens, if you were to try to pull a permit, if your roof got damaged, if you don't live in Florida, you try to pull a permit to get your roof fixed, you could be sitting with a blue tarp on your roof for almost a year.
Yeah.
And you don't know when the next hurricane's coming, right? So you get it fixed whenever you can get it fixed, and then there's no permit pulled. Now you got a problem 3 years from now when you go to sell it.
Well, and so if you're having a conversation with prospective people and there's permit issues on houses that they're interested in, giving them some, not if you don't represent them yet, you're not helping them figure out how to solve them, but you're saying, I do see that there's an open permit for the roof. We recently helped get that closed out at no additional expense for any of the parties involved. And we still closed on time. And those are the kind of things that we handle all the time for you guys. So that's just one more thing that we do for you.
Right.
So you have to tell stories, I think, with that kind of stuff, because
Smart.
Because let me tell you, you guys know, if you're listening, like, not all agents do this stuff. Some agents wouldn't even look or even know where to look. And so you have to stand out from the pack and be prepared and be able to explain to them how you're going to help them through that. And that's value that they don't get with everybody. And with that, so a couple other things, these are more related to buyers, because obviously it's a topical subject, but, we wrote down always someone here. And what we meant by that was that I've heard recently multiple times, oh, my agent's on spring break.
Oh my God. My agent's they're just out of town for 2 weeks.
They're just out of town. My agent's on spring break, and I see this house?
Yeah.
Right. And
this happened. I've heard this happen. This happened to us.
So
this just happened to us.
What do you mean?
When we bought our house in North Carolina, the agents went on vacation.
Oh, the listing agents. I was like,
yes.
our agents and
No.
leave us hanging.
No. The listing agents, 2 of them, by the way, went on vacation.
But so that happens all the time, and people do not get like a backup or somebody to help them out while they're gone. And listen, I am the first person to say, yes, you should go on vacation. You should have some balance in your life. You should take time for yourself, but you have to have a backup person. If you're an individual agent, get somebody from your office to be your team member for the week or wherever, and rotate back and forth and help each other out. If you're on a team, this is the value of team.
Otherwise, you basically just have an old 5 and dime store from the 1950s with a sign on the back that's on the door that says "Gone Fishing."
So always someone here. We're not going, and I guarantee if you're talking to somebody who's done real estate business before and you're explaining to them value and you say, there's always going to be someone available to show property because I work on a team and we fill in for each other. So if I need to go out of town
or get sick
or anything, there will be somebody here to help you. I'm not going to go on spring break with my kids and not have somebody to support you with what your goals are while I'm gone. I'm not just going to leave town for a week. The people will be like, oh, that's great.
Because my last agent
did. Because it happens. Like we hear it all the time. I mean, we must have heard it like 2 or 3 times in the last week because it's that time of year.
Yeah.
And it's like, they didn't leave somebody for you to call. So anyway, so that's one thing. And then this kind of ties in with that one is that we're never going to leave somebody homeless. So I've said that a lot, and it's kind of as a joke, but it's also true.
No, that's not a joke. I think it's very scary for people who are trying to sell their house and buy another one at the same time.
Like we're going to line it up in such a way that you can close simultaneously. And yes, we are going to make sure you have a backup situation. But the closest we came was one couple. They were buying new construction, not in our town. So they were buying it outside of our service area and they were under contract on it when I went to list their property, which means we didn't have any control over the buy side or getting their keys over there or anything. We only had control over listing.
And you were just basically, they said, this house will be ready on X.
Mm-hmm. And the house, no, it was ready. But if I remember correctly, the buyers for their house didn't fund very quickly. And so it was just getting down to the wire. And we started calling hotels. We were going to put them up in a hotel. I was not going to leave them. We were calling hotels and we were asking if they could park their U-Haul there. And we were getting ready to book a hotel room. Meanwhile, also on the other line with the title company saying, this has to fund. You need to figure this out. And they did. They closed. They got to move in. But the point was that we were prepared to do whatever it took to make sure that they didn't just have to fend for themselves, even though I had no control over the buyer's lender or their closing and getting their keys from their closing. Like we only have control over what we can control. And there was so many moving parts in that particular scenario, but we were still going to make sure that they were taken care of. And that's a story that you can share with people.
Well, they can't, because that's your story.
No, I know. But listeners, get your own stories.
Get your own stories. These are our stories.
Don't steal my stories. But point is that you could tell people that I have you can guarantee that kind of stuff for people. You really can, because you're going to be on the hook if you have to put them up in a hotel. Mm-hmm. But those are just those kind of things where if you're confident and you're...
It's like the Domino's 30 minutes or less.
Like,
right?
why not? Why not guarantee that and then be willing to stand behind it and then do everything in your power to make sure that it does close on time? And I'll tell you, like, in all of my years of doing back-to-back closings, I don't think we've ever, knock on wood, had to have somebody not get into their house the same day unless they chose that. Like sometimes people will say, well, I'll just pack up we'll go stay in a hotel. Like sometimes people choose that because it's less stressful for them.
Yeah.
But if it was a simultaneous closing, we got it done. And that is from experience and knowing how to stack the timelines and get it all worked out. It's from experience for sure. But what illustrates it more is the story, the personal story that you can say, you guys are you want to do a back-to-back closing, and that can definitely add a lot of extra stress and anxiety around moving, because there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of people involved, and a lot of times, and you've probably heard friends and family that didn't get to move into their house that day and they were left having to scramble to find a hotel room. That's not going to happen here. I guarantee that we'll get you into that house, and if we don't, we will pay for you to stay in a hotel down the street and store your U-Haul or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you can do that. That's value added that other people are not going to promise.
You've seen some agents, this is not us, but I've seen other agents, some of them supply a moving truck, for example. There's value, right?
Yeah.
We've got a moving truck that you can use for free. There's all sorts
We recently paid for movers to help a simultaneous closing. And there was like probably an hour that they had to wait for funding for the buyers. And so we provided movers to help them unload so that they weren't there all afternoon. And it's just those little things. Those are value adds that you can throw in. You can talk about it up front, explain what we do differently. Other things, how much time do we have?
I'll let you know. You just keep blabbing on.
Well, there's lots of things, but I'll say two more. How about that?
All right. I'll allow it.
So one, and this is going to sound like what everybody does, and it's not the same, is we hunt for and curate listings. We do not just put on a drip email and send you a bunch of stuff that doesn't match what you're looking for. If you want to go do that, you can go sign up for all the different websites and think that you're getting all the listings. That's not what we do. We curate the listings based on our consultation, and we look for off-market opportunities and we find them. We have sold property, and this is where, again, the storytelling, if you know that what they're looking for is unique or specific, or they've got a very specific location that there's really nothing for sale, these are things we can do for you as our exclusive clients that other people won't take the time and energy to do. We actually will send out letter campaigns. We'll make direct phone calls to sellers or people who might be selling, looking for people that match what you're looking for. And we found them before, and we've sold property. And we still negotiate all of it on their behalf, and we do all of the things. We just find a property that matches what they're looking for, that isn't being shown by all the other agents out there.
And just a quick little behind the scenes of that, that's what you should be doing anyway, because if for some reason, if you're just on a drip campaign and these people want to go see this 3-bedroom on the east side of town, and then they want to see a 4-bedroom on the west side of town, and then what you end up doing is showing a bunch of houses to somebody and you don't really know what they want, which just wastes your time. By doing it this way, by curating, takes a little bit more time up front to do that, just in the simplest form of the curation, right? But you know exactly what they're seeing and what's being sent to them. And if they start to send you properties that aren't following that criteria, that means that what they want, their idea of what they want changed, and it's time to have another consultation, right? Because now all of a sudden they're looking at 4-bedroom houses, or now they're looking on the east side of town. They didn't want to live over there. Well, if you want to live on the east side of town, there's 8 other properties we could go see over on the east side of town besides this one. Let's go see all of them.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why it's just having that connection with your buyers. It makes it, that's the value. That's the value. Right.
Well, and there used to be a script for this where it's like the reason that I maybe won't, what was I going to say? We time block our days, right? And we lead generate in the morning. And sometimes clients want to call and talk and go over things and during that time block. And a really easy way for them to understand that you're doing your most important work is I'm not just lead generating for new business for myself. I'm lead generating. I'm looking for sellers for my buyers and buyers for my sellers. That's what we do every day. Every single day when I pick up the phone and I say, hey, do you happen to know anybody that's looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate? I am looking for a match for somebody. And if you always look at it that way, that's what you're doing. And first of all, it works, and you'll find those connections.
It helps to have more than one client.
Well, yes, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know.
But then also like I think this is going to continue to be more important too, but like keep these off-market lists. You know, if you get a call from somebody and they're not a listing appointment today, but they say, like I sent out a letter campaign recently and got quite a few calls and people who they're not ready to list, but they're like, hey, if you found a buyer for like X price, I'd be interested. Mm-hmm. Write it down. Now I have an off-market opportunity for somebody if somebody is looking in that area. And so if I do an open house over there, I can, first of all, I could call all the expired listings in that neighborhood and say, are you still interested? And do the open house. And then I've got off-market opportunities for those people. That's value that they're not getting from somewhere else. So might they be more interested to meet with you and learn more about what is this off-market thing that you're doing? But you've got to deliver on that promise. Then you can't just have one thing on the list.
You've got to, and then go put them on a drip campaign.
Right. Like do what you say you're going to do. If that's what they need, you can deliver on that. And that's what you talk about. That's the value you can bring to them. You're always kind of looking for the gap with people when it's prospects. Is like, I can do all kinds of stuff for people, right? If they're relocating from a different state, well, I have lived here since 2003. I know all the different corners. Tell me what you're interested in. I'll send you a relocation guide about all the different locations, or I'll put together some notes about the 3 main areas that you're looking in and what you might find interesting about those. And you can provide anything that's valuable to people if you know a little bit about them and what they need. And then you just fill those gaps, and then you do it when you say you're going to do it. And then they say, oh, I trust that person. They said they would do this. They did it. And then, okay, so the last one that I'll say is this one's kind of a big one, but it only works if you have been in real estate and have some sort of stats for yourself. And this is savings. Like if you've been in real estate for at least a year and you've done some business, you can calculate how much did you save your customers. And if it's a seller, you're actually looking at how much more than average did you make for them on the sale of their home. And on a buy side, you're looking at your savings. So I can calculate up like, okay, on average, we saved X number of dollars or X percent of the sales price for our buyer clients and X number of dollars towards repairs. And then that's something, first of all, you can market that. That's like actual tangible things you can market to people. But then you can also share that with every single person you meet, especially if they, if they're really price sensitive or they need concessions or things like that. Well, great, because that we actually last year on average provided, double what you need as savings for our buyers. Well, what do you mean? Well, for every buyer we worked with, on average, they saved this many dollars off the sales price or as concessions from the seller. That's what a good negotiator can do for you. That's what a great negotiator can do for you. And that's the difference. There's a, in bold, one of the scripts years ago, it's for a seller, but it's something to the effect of like, companies pay great negotiators hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if everybody could just I'm messing up the script, of course, because it's not something I use regularly.
If it was that easy, everyone would be doing it.
If it wasn't, if it didn't matter who was negotiating on your behalf,
why would they? Yeah, why pay them all that money?
Then why are there skilled negotiators earning hundreds of thousands of dollars at corporate levels? Right? Yeah. It does matter who's negotiating on your behalf. And let me show you our track record so you can see how we save our buyers money every year. Or whatever, or how we earn more money for our sellers in that case. That's one of the biggest ones because people want to save money or they want to earn the most money possible.
It's tangible numbers that they're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so if you can demonstrate that and then demonstrate how little the average agent in your area does, then now you've just said, look, this is the value I bring to our customers. They're saving more money than average people in the area. Because we have the experience. We do what we say we're going to do. We're market experts. We're skilled negotiators. We study the market like crazy. So we know what's going on and what you can and can't do in that market. and we're never going to leave you hanging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, sign on the dotted line. Let's get together and work. Let's get to work.
Ladies and gentlemen, the question you are about to hear is true. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Question from the web. I move a lot for my husband's job and don't have a large SOI or network here to build off of. I'm looking for tried and true ways of building an SOI in a new place. Where did you advertise that's work for you? I don't mind putting in the work to build it. I'm just at a loss right now on where to start to get my name out there.
Can you read that last part again? Wait, just read the whole thing.
Read the whole thing again. Were you looking at your phone or something?
No.
Were you? I wasn't looking over there.
I looked off out the window.
Be somewhere else, guys. I move a lot for my husband's job and I don't have a large SOI or network here to build off of. I'm looking for tried and true ways of building an SOI in a new place. Where did you advertise that work for you? I don't mind putting in the work to build it. I'm just at a loss right now on where to start to get my name out there.
Okay. Well, so I guess I would start with explaining sphere again. Like your sphere of influence are people that know you in some way. So what you're going to build is initially just a list of people that you've met, and you have to turn them into sphere. So what I mean by that is when you go to a networking event and you meet somebody and you say, "Hi, I'm Catherine," and they say, I'm Jill. Nice to meet you. They're not your sphere. So you've got to create a plan for touching them. And what the MRA book would suggest is 8 touches over 8 weeks to solidify that they know who you are. So if you meet Jill, say at a networking event, and then you get her name, her email, her phone number, her mailing address, you put her in your list, your database, and you put her on that campaign or smart plan, where you're touching her periodically and seeing if you can add value to her and what's her story. And then after that 8-week period, potentially she's now your sphere, right? Because she will recognize who you are when you call, and you're maybe still seeing each other at these events, and she knows who you are. So
you have to do that 200 times.
So you want to build it to 200. So, I mean, it's like, what are the best ways to advertise yourself? That's not what advertising is.
No.
Advertising is putting it out to people who don't know you, that you've not met, and waiting for them to call.
Those are digital billboards.
That's not the same thing.
And it's passive. And it takes thousands of people to see it for you to get one phone call.
And then I would also argue, like, a lot of times people are like, can I add open house people to my sphere? No. Open house people are leads that you met in an open house. They're not leads. Your sphere. They're leads. And
they go in the database.
They are communicated with differently. So to build your sphere is going to take, when you're brand new to an area, is going to take time and dedication to getting out and meeting people. But the best way to start is to think about people that you do already interact with. Like, you get your hair cut, you go to some sort of salon, that person should be in your sphere. Maybe the front desk person, if you talk to them and you see them regularly, right? Your dentist. I always say dentist. Maybe a doctor, maybe the front desk person there.
Whoever your husband's working with.
Your husband's work colleagues, and
then what we always say
your kids' school teacher, your
if you have kids, you're already halfway there. Or you go to church, you're already halfway there.
If you participate in any kind of extracurricular activities, I mean, like
tennis club, pickleball, golf,
everything that you would interact with other people doing an activity, every single one of those people should be in your sphere.
And, being an agent, especially if you're a new person going into a new city and that you're used to doing that, you're probably used to meeting new people. So you're already ahead of the game versus someone who's just lived in their house and doesn't really like people and isn't interested in people. Then this isn't the job for you.
And you should also look at like vendors for your house. Like if you've used, if you have a landscaper, a house cleaner, a pool service, AC technician, plumber, electrician, all of those things that if there's people that you've interacted with in any capacity, they could be in your sphere, but you need to communicate with them eventually. Yeah. Like you put them in the list, communicate with them so that they know who you are when you're calling, and then they're your sphere. but it's tedious. I know it is. I've watched people try to do it, and oftentimes they give up because it's hard.
It's hard, and
it's hard even if you do know a lot of people.
And I don't know, you're saying in this message here, I think they're getting twisted up a little bit, because it's like, oh, we moved to a new place. My husband moves a lot for his job. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, but if you're going to move next year, you're going to have to start over with this. Like the real estate is about referral business. And if you keep picking up and moving from place to place, this isn't the job for you.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Now, if you've locked yourself in now and you guys are there to stay, that's a different story. But if you're going to pick up and move in 2 years, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
You're wasting your time.
Other things that are coming to mind. If you go to a gym, everybody that you meet in the gym, if you go to a yoga class, personal trainer, all of those things that you just do, you start with all of that first before you start going to networking events. But if you're going to go to networking events, just try to find things that you actually have interest in.
Right.
Not just some random thing because there's an event tonight.
Yeah.
And it takes time to find that stuff, but it's worth it. Again, if you're invested in staying in that place, this will pay off long term.
And that's why I said that's your sphere. I don't know if you're confused between sphere and database and everything else, because you're talking about advertising and
I just thought of one more.
Advertising yourself, and like as if you're going to put an ad in a magazine or something. The amount of investment and time and energy that takes longer than a sphere. By the way, that's long. That takes longer to do that, and to have where people are calling you because they saw your ad somewhere.
I thought of one more thing. Neighbors. Like,
oh yeah, that's the first one.
Neighbors, and I don't mean farming. Again, that's a strategy.
Go start knocking on doors.
But your neighbors of like just your first street, right? The closest neighbors.
Go introduce yourself to every
You're
single
new.
person.
It should be easy. I used to be so jealous when new kids would come to school because everybody wanted to know who the new kid was, and I was never the new kid.
Right.
And I was never the new kid. But we lived near a military, or I didn't live near a military base, but the school was. And so we had new people all the time, and everybody was so enamored with them.
Yeah.
And so all you have to do is go knock on somebody's door and say, hey, I'm new to the neighborhood. I just wanted to meet some neighbors. And they'll be like, oh, welcome. They'll be excited to see you.
They'll tell you, and maybe you get a neighbor like ours who will tell you about everybody else on the street and around the corner.
Right.
Right. And then then you get in good with them, and that starts to snowball.
Yep.
But like I said, if you're planning on moving in 8 months for something else, you might start wanting to think about a different career.
Job, different career.
Small win. Kat, you got a small win this week?
I think just your family came to town over the weekend, and we just
I thought you were going to talk about your
what are you doing?
Well, you guys had your thing. But
I already forgot about that.
I know. Okay.
No, we won some award.
We won some awards. Nah.
Well, no, I mean,
your small win is that my family came here.
I had a nice day. We had a nice meal.
Doesn't take much, guys.
Lots of sweets.
Doesn't take much.
It was a nice, relaxing day. But no, we did. We had the award ceremony, the annual award ceremony, and that's always fun. It's fun to get recognized for hard work, although I was not satisfied.
Never is. And my small win is we are getting ready to furnish our rental property that we purchased in North Carolina.
Yeah,
and
it's going to be a fun adventure.
I had to, because it's in North Carolina, I had to take measurements of all the rooms when we were there. And then I designed the interior design for the entire house with those measurements and photographs that I took, and had to think of everything that we would possibly need for an Airbnb on top of that. So not just the interior design, but an iron and a can opener and everything you could imagine across the board. And finally have ordered about 75% of it, and everything's going to start showing up. And I hope that everything shows up while we're there, and I hope that everything works together the way it's supposed to. And once this is over, I will have a lot of stress lifted off of me. So the small win is that we're almost there.
I'll have the stress lifted once it's done, and then we put it up for rent, and the first person books it.
Right. If we do all of this and then put it up for rent, and it just sits there for 2 weeks, I'm gonna be real nervous. Hey guys,
putting a for sale sign up.
I know. Remember to rate and review us on iTunes. It really helps new listeners to find us. Send your questions from the web to onseekingthebest@gmail.com. Leave us a Spotify voicemail with your questions and we'll play it on the show. All info is in the show notes. And for Kat and myself, thanks for listening, and we'll figure this all out next week.
Bye.
This has been a Think Live Be production.